In this video, we will discuss the fourth unit of Rise of Nationalism in India, the sense of collective belonging on page 70. We will discuss what were the factors that resulted in developing the sense of collective belonging amidst Indians. Now, first of all, let's be clear what do we exactly mean when we talk about collective belonging. Collective belonging means that all the Indians felt that we are part of same nation. We are united. We belong to one nation. We are fighting against one common enemy, British. So, first reason behind this development or the factor that resulted in developing the sense of collective belonging was experience of united struggle. All the Indians, they came together, they were fighting together, they were participating in all the movements, national non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, and quit India movement. All of them came together to fight against the British rule. So this experience of united struggle resulted in developing sense of collective belonging. And there were many cultural processes also which resulted in developing this sense of collective belonging. So first factor is experience of united struggle. Second factor we'll talk about images. Images can unite people. Now identity of a nation, children, is often symbolized by a figure or image. In the modern context, if I talk about tricolor, so this is the image that automatically we will associate with India. So in the 20th century also there was the image of Bharat Mata which brought people together. Now Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, he was the first to develop this image of Bharat Mata. He developed this image of Bharat Mata through words. He wrote in 1870, he wrote Vande Mataram, a hymn to mother land. Later, he included this in his novel Anand Mat. Now, inspired and moved by the Swadeshi movement, when Vande Mataram was sung widely, so Avninder Nath Tagore, he was the first person who actually painted the image of Bharat Mata. In word, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay used the image of Bharat Mata, but first painted image of Bharat Mata was made by Avnindranath Tagore. Avnindranath Tagore portrayed Bharat Mata as saintly figure, very calm, composed, divine and spiritual. Later, various artists painted image of Bharat Mata in their own way. Some showed her as strong, powerful, etc. But one thing is in common is this, that the image of Bharat Mata brought Indians together and it developed a sense of collective belonging because devotion to the mother figure was seen as an evidence of one's love for the country. Now, third factor was movement to revive folklore. Late 19th century, the nationalists, they started recording folk songs sung by the bards, and they toured from village to village and they gathered folk songs and stories to be told to the people. Now, why? Because according to them, these folk tales and folklores and folklores and folk songs, they actually portrayed true picture of India, true picture of traditional culture. Through this, one can discover national identity and develop sense of pride. So they collected these stories and these songs, and these were retold to the people so that the people may develop a sense of collective belonging. Two names that are worth mentioning here are first, Ravindranath Tagore. He led the movement to revive folklore in Bengal. He himself collected ballads, nursery rhymes, myths, and led the movement for the revival of folk songs and folk tales. Then in Madras, Natisa Sastri. Natisa Sastri published a book named The Folklores of Southern India because he believed that folklores were the national literature. So the efforts of Ravindranath Tagore, the efforts of Natisa Sastri and many other leaders who collected the folklores and retold these to the people, resulted in developing a sense of collective belonging. Then, children, the fourth was icons and symbols. Because icons and symbols, they can unify people, they can develop nationalism. So, there were certain icons and symbols which actually brought the Indian people together. First, I will talk about the Swadeshi flag, or rather, uh, uh, flag that was used during Swadeshi movement in Bengal. Now, it was a tricolor flag, red, green, and yellow. There were eight lotuses. Eight lotuses represented the eight provinces of British India. And then there was a crescent moon, which was sacred for both Hindus and Muslims. So, during this Swadeshi movement, Bengal, people used this flag. They would feel very proud to hold the flag. Now, in 1921, Swaraj flag. This also brought people together. This Swaraj flag was designed by Gandhi. It was in tricolor, red, green, white, and there was a spinning wheel in center. Why a spinning wheel in center? Because it portrayed Gandhian ideal of self-help. So children, carrying and holding the flag during marches became a symbol of defiance, and people felt uh, very proud to hold the flags, and this developed a sense of belonging. Now, the last point is reinterpretation of history, page 72. You know how British treated Indians and how they saw Indians? British saw Indians as backward, primitive, incapable of governing themselves. They treated Indians as second-rate citizens. There were so many places where Indians were not even allowed to enter. In their own country, Indians were treated like that. So Indian leaders, the Indian elite, the Indian nationalists thought in order to instill sense of pride in Indians, Indian history should be uh, thought about differently and talked about differently. So they talked about the glorious Indian past. They talked about art, architecture, science, mathematics, religion, culture, law, trade flourishing in India. They talked about Indian medicines, they talked about Indian architecture, and they gave glowing tributes to all this. And this was done to instill feeling of pride and nationalism amongst people. So these were the reasons that resulted in developing sense of collective belonging amidst the Indians. Now, children, you have a 5 mark question that you will write in your copy. How did people belonging to different communities, region, or language groups develop a sense of collective belonging? In this answer, you will write united struggle. You will write all the other points that I have discussed with you, that is image of Bharat Mata, icons, symbols, and then reinterpretation of Indian history and revival movement. You can also be asked 3 marks questions from here, though you're not supposed to write it in your copy. You will write this 5 mark question. It will include all, but from examination point of view, you may be asked how did symbols result in developing a sense of collective belonging, or how reinterpretation of history developed in developing a sense of collective belonging. Okay, students, all the best. Good. Thank you.